This Chazar Zeichen Nishbach Shag Rabbi Yehuda Mesechus Chullin Daf Kuf Yud Dalet. A bride says that one who cooks meat in whey is not chayev. This supports Rish Lakish, who explains in the Mishnah, which says that whey is like milk, to mean that it's that's true regarding something that's mukshah. It can make mukshah lechavatuma, but not for purpose of basar v'chalav. A bride says the pasuk says b'chalev imoy. How do we know that it's equally also to cook the meat in milk of a cow or sheep? If the there is if there's no isser of breeding with his mother, and yet there's an isser to cook its meat in his mother's milk, and certainly with respect to a cow or sheep, where there's even an isser of klayim cooking in their milk, is certainly also the pasuk therefore says b'chalev imoy. A second time teacher, the goat's meat is even also to be cooked in the milk of a cow or a sheep. We dash in the Kavachayim teaches. So why does the Brisa then say we need the pasuk to teach us? If the Gemara Rashi says the Kavachayim can be refuted by saying cooking in his mother's milk is also because it's also to shecht it and its mother on the same day. But the cow and the sheep could be shechted on the same day as this goat, and therefore maybe cooking in the milk is not also. That's why the Brisa says that we need the pasuk to teach that it is also. So the Brisa says the pasuk says b'chalev imoy. How do we know that it's equally also to cook the meat in the milk of its older sister? We dash if it's also to be cooked in the milk of its mother, which may be in the same group of animals for purposes of meiser, if they are born in the same year, then certainly it may not be cooked in the milk of its older sister, which is not in the same group of animals for purposes of meiser. The pasuk therefore says b'chalev imoy. A third time teaches the goat's milk is even also to be cooked in the milk of its older sister. In fact, we dash to teach us again. So why is the Brisa saying that we need the pasuk? And if the more Rashi said the Kavachayim can be refuted by saying cooking his mother's milk is also because it's also shecht it and his mother on the same day. But the older sister could be shechted on the same day as this goat, and therefore maybe cooking with his milk is not also. That's why the Brisa says that we need the pasuk to teach this. In fact, how do we know that it's also also to cook the meat in the milk of its younger sister that is in the same group of animals for purposes of meiser? And for the Gemara, we learn it from a tzad hashav between the milk of its mother and the milk of its older sister. If we try to learn it from the mother, we'll say it's different because it may not be shechted on the same day. However, we'll say that the older sister shows that that's not what makes it also, because it could be shechted on the same day. We'll then try to learn it from the older sister, but we'll say the older sister is different since it's not in the same group of animals for meiser purposes. However, we're going to say the mother is, and yet cooking the milk is also. The tzad hashav is that we have meat that's also to cook in milk, and we therefore can include the milk of the younger sister as well. In fact, why can't we also learn that it's also to cook meat in the milk of the older sister with the tzad hashav between the milk of the mother and the milk of a cow and sheep? And if more in the fact, we could. And chanami. Rather, the third b'chalev imoy is needed for the drush of a brisa. The brisa says, how do we know that it's equally also to cook meat of an animal in its own milk? We can dash in the kavachayim. The halacha of oisias b'nai does not apply to two offsprings of the same mother, but does apply to an offspring which is a product of a mother and its mother. So the issur of cooking meat in milk, which does apply to milk of sibling offspring, will certainly also apply to the milk of the mother, which is also a product of the mother, and its own meat as well. The pasuk therefore says, b'chalev imoy, a third time, teach that the animal's meat is even also to be cooked in its own milk. We dash to teach us. So why does the Brisa need now at the end the pasuk to teach it? Rabbi Chatavoya Bar Ami said the kavachayim could be refuted because we find a case where the products of a mother may be also to each other, even though the product is mutter with the mother. The example is where a female horse has a male horse son and a female mule daughter, where the halacha is that the offspring are also as klayim, but the son and the mother are not. In fact, it's the zera, the father, that causes the issur, and can't be compared to our case. For if a female horse has a male mule as a son and a female mule as a daughter, the products, meaning the offspring of the mother, will be mutter to each other and also to the mother. If so, the kavachayim is not refuted. So why do we need the pasuk? If rather, Mar, the son of Ravina, said the kavachayim can be refuted based on the case of a non-Jewish maid who has a son who is a non-Jewish slave and a daughter who is freed and is therefore a full-fledged yid. This would be the case where the two products of the mother are also to be together, but the product, meaning the son and the mother, are mutter to each other. Therefore, although the meat of a goat is also in its mother's milk, the meat and milk are both products of the mother. It may be that the meat of an animal would not be also in its own milk. Only the milk is a product of the animal, and that's why we need the pasuk. In fact, in this case of avadim also, it's to get shichver that causes the issur, and therefore can't be compared to our case. For if the mother had been freed and the son and the daughter had not been freed, the result would be that the two products are mutter to each other, the children, and the product and the mother are also to each other. And rather, Rav Baravin said the kavachayim can be refuted based on the case of klayim, of planting seeds. The seeds of different species are also, even though they come from the same mother Earth, and yet each seed may be planted alone with its Mother Earth. In fact, the different seeds only become asur through the mother Earth. They don't become asur if simply placed into a keli. We can't refute the kavachayim. So why is the pasuk needed? And for the more, rather, Rashi said we would ask that two products of a mother, meaning the meat of the offspring and the milk of the mother, are two separate bodies, but the meat and the milk of the mother itself are one body, and that's why we may think that they don't become asur when cooked together. That's why we need the pasuk of b'chalev imoy to teach that it would be Aser. Zokmar Vaiter. Rashi said, how do we know that the meat cooked with milk is also to be eaten? The pasuk said, "Lo soichal kol tayevu," which teaches that anything that Hashem made also is included in lo soichal. How do we know it's also aser b'hana? We learn like Tot Bar Rabba in the name of Rabbi Lazar, who says that any place that the Torah simply writes one shall not eat, it includes iser hana as well, unless the Torah specifically permits having hana, like it does by nevela, where it permits it to either giving to the ger. The ger toishav, or permits it being sold to a regular guy. A Bryce says, or Meir holds it may even be given or sold to either a guy or a ger. Rabbi Yehuda says it may only be given to a ger or sold to a guy, not vice versa. Rabbi Yehuda says the word oy in the pasuk comes to separate and teach that it's either given to a ger or sold to a guy. Rabbi Meir says the word oy comes to teach that it's preferable to give it to the ger rather than sell it to the guy. Rabbi Yehuda says we don't need a word to teach what the preference is, because since there's a mitzvah to help sustain a ger toishav, it's logical that it's preferable to give it to the ger rather than to sell it to a guy.